Welcome to Starbound's Fantasy Channel. My name is Carol, and I'll be your narrator for today. Before we get started with the story, go ahead, check and make sure that you're subscribed. It's 100% free, and it allows our stories to pop up in your feed more often. With that, let's get started. Rigg Stormjaw was not the brightest flame in the forest fire, but what he lacked in critical thinking, he made up for with an impressive ability to headbutt his way through life's problems. Literally. His forehead was a calloused landscape of previous victories against doors, trolls, and particularly stubborn jars of pickled eggs. Today, that magnificent forehead was sweating as 5 dwarves hooted and hollered around him.
"Eat it, you spineless weasel!"
croaked Gornuk, the eldest dwarf, his beard tangled with chicken bones and regrets.
"I ain't spineless!"
Rigg protested, eyeing the luminescent mushroom on the temple floor.
"I'm just wondering if something that glows like a fairy's backside is meant for eating."
The mushroom in question pulsed with an otherworldly light, casting blue-green shadows across the ancient stone walls. They stood in the dilapidated ruins of what had once been a temple to, well, something. Rigg wasn't great with history.
50 gold says you won't,
taunted another dwarf, jingling his coin purse. That was all Rigg needed to hear. 50 gold meant at least 8 days of decent ale, and maybe a new pair of boots that didn't talk to him when they got wet.
"Watch and wait, little men,"
Rigg announced, snatching up the mushroom. It felt warm in his palm, almost alive. For a fraction of a second, barely long enough to register, Rigg thought he heard the mushroom whisper. "Finally!" Then he popped it into his mouth. It tasted like licking a star might, if stars were made of burning honey and electric mint. Rigg's tongue went numb. His eyes watered, and then every neuron in his brain decided to throw a festival of lights.
"Ah!"
He howled, clutching his temples. The dwarves backed away, suddenly less amused and more concerned about the possibility of a human-shaped lawsuit dying in their mining factory. Rigg collapsed, his vision fracturing into a million kaleidoscopic fragments. The world dissolved around him, revealing layers beneath layers, truths behind truths. For one terrifying, magnificent second, he understood everything. Then, he blacked out. When Rigg awoke, the dwarves were gone, along with his coin purse and left boot. Typical. His head throbbed like a war drum, and his vision was...
"What in the 17 soggy hells?"
he muttered. The world looked normal, but also utterly, profoundly not. Everything had edges that weren't there before. Auras, whispers of light, traces of something. He could see through the temple walls, perceiving faint outlines of trees and rocks beyond. When he looked at his hands, he could see his own veins pulsing with life force, little rivers of blue-green light.
"Bad ale,"
he concluded firmly.
"Very bad ale."
Rigg stood up, wobbling slightly, and decided that breakfast might help, or at the very least finding his missing boot. He stumbled out of the ruins, trying to ignore the way the air seemed to part before him, revealing currents and eddies of invisible energy. It would be several hours before he realized that what he was seeing wasn't a hangover. It was the world as it actually existed, with all its glamours and illusions stripped bare. It would be several more days before he understood what that meant. And it would be several weeks before the entire Elven kingdom wished he'd never been born. Thalira Shadeleaf did not make mistakes. Her instructors at the Academy of Subtle Arts had written that exact phrase in her final evaluation. Shadeleaf does not make mistakes. This is both her greatest strength and her most alarming weakness. She moved through the forest like breath through lungs. Silent, essential, unnoticed. The invisibility cloak draped over her slender frame was worth more than most human kingdoms. It didn't merely bend light, it bent perception itself, creating a pocket of unnoticed around the wearer. Even animals couldn't sense her passing. Her orders were clear. Find the human brute had been disrupting trade routes and gleaning secrets that no human should know. Assess his abilities. If he was merely lucky, kill him. If he possessed actual power, capture for interrogation. Simple. She'd been tracking him for 3 days. The trail wasn't difficult to follow. The human moved through the wilderness with all the subtlety of a drunken bear. Broken branches, discarded food scraps. At one point she found a tree where he'd carved, "Rigg was here," and beneath it, "P.S. Sorry about the carving." Thalira's lip curled in disgust. This was the creature causing so much concern among the Elven High Command? This walking disaster? She found him sitting by a stream, attempting to fish with his bare hands and mostly succeeding in soaking himself. His hair, an untamed mane that seemed to have never encountered a comb in its existence, hung in wet ropes around his face. His muscles, she noted, with professional detachment, were impressive, bunching and flexing as he lunged for another fish.
Gotcha, you slippery little...
The fish squirted from his grasp, slapping him in the face with its tail before disappearing downstream.
Bastard.
Thalira drew her dagger, a curved blade of elven steel so sharp it could split a moonbeam. The human was distracted, vulnerable. This would be the easiest assignment of her career. She glided forward, making no sound, disturbing not even the air molecules around her. 20 feet away. 15. 10. And then the human turned, looked directly at her, and smiled.
Hey there! You hungry? I'm trying to catch lunch, but the fish are smarter than they look. Probably smarter than me, if I'm being honest.
He waved cheerfully, as if greeting an old friend at a tavern. Thalira froze. A human couldn't see her. It was impossible. The Cloak of Unsight was ancient elven magic, crafted by the greatest illusionists of the Third Age. It had hidden her from dragons, from gods. But this barbarian was looking right at her, water dripping from his idiotic grin.
That's a nice dagger,
he said conversationally, pointing at her blade.
Very shiny. I like the curvy bit.
Thalira did the only rational thing. She screamed. Rigg wasn't sure why the nearly naked elf woman with the fancy knife was screaming, but it seemed impolite to interrupt. She had good lungs on her. The scream went on for quite some time. When she finally stopped, they stared at each other in mutual bewilderment.
Are you okay?
Rigg ventured.
Did I scare you? The Gorbel says my face scares children, but I think he's just jealous of my aristocratic nose.
He tapped the crooked bridge that had been broken roughly 17 times in his 32 years. The elf woman hissed something in her language that Rigg didn't understand, but which definitely sounded rude. Then she seemed to collect herself. "You cannot see me," she stated in the common tongue, her accent making the words sound like music. "I am hidden from perception." Rigg squinted. The elf was standing right in front of him, clear as day, though admittedly surrounded by a weird, shimmery cloak thing that made her edges look a bit fuzzy.
Are you playing a game? He asked. Is this like that time the monks in Durhaven pretended I was invisible because I wouldn't stop asking questions during their silent meditation?
The elf's perfect face contorted with frustration. "I am cloaked in the ancient magic of..." She stopped, shook her head sharply. "No, this is a trick. A trap. You've been expecting me." Rigg scratched his beard, which contained several twigs, a lost quill, and half of yesterday's dinner.
"I wasn't expecting anyone. Except maybe that squirrel I insulted earlier. He seemed like the vengeful type."
The elf took a step backward. Rigg noticed for the first time that she was shaking slightly. "What are you?" she whispered.
"Hungry,"
Rigg answered truthfully.
"And maybe a bit confused. That mushroom I ate yesterday is making everything look weird. Like I can see through stuff? I thought it was wearing off, but then you showed up in your fancy see-through cloak, so maybe it's not.
He paused.
Did you know you got a little glowing thread coming out of your left ear? It's very pretty.
That's when the elf turned and ran, with such speed that she seemed to evaporate into the forest.
Was it something I said?
Rigg called after her. He waited, but got no response. He shrugged and turned back to the stream.
Women, am I right?
He said to a nearby frog, which blinked at him judgmentally. 10 minutes later, as he was failing to start a fire with damp wood, a voice suddenly spoke from the thin air beside him. You've eaten a god, you know. Rigg jumped, falling backward over a log. A small, luminous mushroom was floating at eye level. It had no visible mouth, but somehow, the voice seemed to emanate from it directly into his brain.
Talking mushroom,
Rigg noted calmly.
That's new.
I'm not just any mushroom, the voice continued, managing to sound both imperious and petulant at the same time. I am Vulith, the seer beyond sight, the knower of hidden ways, the...
Are you the mushroom I ate yesterday?
Rigg interrupted.
'Cause if so, I think you're supposed to be, inside me.
The mushroom pulsed with annoyance. I am inside you. This is merely a projection of my consciousness, made possible because I am beginning to integrate with your pitiful human nervous system.
Ah,
said Rigg, nodding as if this made perfect sense.
So you're a magic mushroom.
I am a god, the mushroom flared, its glow intensifying. A god of ancient wisdom and limitless sight. I have granted you the power to see through all falsehoods, all barriers, all secrets. You now possess true sight, mortal.
Is that why I can see through walls and stuff?
Rigg asked, genuinely curious.
And why I could see that elf lady when she thought I couldn't?
Yes, the mushroom said, mollified by his interest. The female was using Elven concealment magic. Such petty tricks cannot hide from the true sight. Rigg pondered this for a moment.
So, I'm not going crazy from bad ale.
No. You are merely the unlucky vessel of a divine entity that has been trapped in fungal form for 3 millennia, waiting for a host stupid enough to eat it without question.
That doesn't sound great when you put it like that.
The mushroom bobbed in a way that somehow suggested a shrug. It is what it is. Now, we must prepare for what comes next. The elves will not take kindly to a human who can see through their precious magic. They will send others. Many others. Rigg scratched his head, dislodging a small spider that had been making a home there.
Why would they care? So I can see him. Big deal.
The mushroom pulsed with something like a sigh. You really are quite remarkably dense, aren't you? Think, human. Think of what this means. You can see through walls. You can see through disguises. You can see through lies, what you might see in their precious hidden cities. What secrets might you uncover just by looking at the right elf at the right time?
Oh,
Rigg said, the implications finally dawning on him. They're gonna try and kill me, aren't they? Most assuredly.
Ha!
Rigg stood up and brushed himself off.
Well, that's inconvenient.
Indeed, agreed the mushroom. Now, if you'll allow me to take over your body temporarily, I can...
No thanks, Rigg said pleasantly. I'm using it.
What?
My body, I'm using it. But thanks for the offer and for explaining the whole saying through thing. That's helpful.
He picked up his bag and began gathering his meager belongings. The mushroom bobbed in what appeared to be shocked silence. Then, you can't just dismiss me. I am Vuleth, the all-seeing, the enlightened one, the...
Lots of fancy titles. I got it.
Rigg slung his pack over his shoulder.
Look, Mr. Mushroom, Vuleth. Mr. Vuleth, then. I can appreciate you giving me this true sight business, even if it was an accident. But I don't need a roommate in my head, especially one that wants to drive the cart, if you catch my meaning.
You will need me, the mushroom said, its glow dimming ominously. When the elves come in force, when they bring their magic and their ancient weapons, you will beg for my wisdom and power. Rigg considered this.
Maybe. But for now, I think I'll just try to get out of elf territory before they send more invisible murder women after me.
He paused.
Oh, she was pretty. In a definitely gonna stab me kind of way.
The mushroom dimmed further until it was barely visible. We will speak again, Vessel, when you are ready to understand your true purpose. And then it was gone, leaving Rigg alone with his thoughts, his new weird vision, and the distinct feeling that his life had just gotten considerably more complicated.
Shoulda skipped breakfast yesterday,
he muttered, and set off deeper into the forest. Thalira had never failed a mission before. Not once in her 87 years of service to the Verdant Throne. Her record was immaculate, her reputation sterling, her advancement assured. Until now. Let me understand this correctly, said Commander Silverdew, his ancient face a masterpiece of barely contained disdain. You were fully cloaked in the Shroud of Unsight, a magical artifact that has concealed our assassins from demon lords, and this unwashed human simply waved at you. Thalira stood at attention, her face burning with shame. The command post was elegant, even by Elven standards, all flowing lines and living wood grown into the shape of furniture and walls. A dozen high-ranking officers watched her humiliation, with expressions ranging from skepticism to open amusement. Yes, Commander, she replied stiffly. He saw me completely. He even complimented me on my dagger. A poorly suppressed snicker came from somewhere to her left. She did not turn to identify the source, but mentally added them to her list of people who would mysteriously lose their undergarments to nesting squirrels in the near future. Silverdew's silver eyebrows formed a disapproving V. And instead of completing your mission, you screamed and ran away. But like that, it sounded even worse. I made a tactical retreat, sir, to report this unexpected development. How considerate of you. The commander's voice was drier than ancient parchment. Tell me, Scout Shadeleaf, what does Codex Rule 17 state about mission parameters? Thalira's jaw clenched. Adapt or die, sir. Indeed, and yet here you stand, having done neither. Silverdew rose from his chair, a fluid movement despite his 1,000+ years. You are relieved of this assignment. Report to Captain Morningdew for reassignment to perimeter duty. Perimeter duty. Watching the borders for lost human merchants and drunken dwarves. The lowest assignment possible, short of latrine maintenance.
Sir, with respect,
Thalira began, desperation making her voice sharper than protocol allowed.
This human is dangerous. He possesses some form of counter-magic. He could be a threat to...
He is a filthy human who got lucky. Silverdew cut her off. Nothing more. Captain Windweaver will handle the matter with a proper team. He gestured dismissively. You are dismissed, Scout. Thalira saluted, turned on her heel, and marched out of the command post, her face a carefully composed mask that completely failed to hide the inferno of humiliation and rage burning inside her. As she stalked toward the barracks to collect her belongings, one thought burned brighter than all the others. Somehow, someday, she would make that human pay for what he'd cost her. The problem with seeing through things, Rigg was discovering, was that sometimes you saw things you didn't really want to see.
That's just nasty,
he muttered, averting his eyes away from an elderly couple in a cottage whose walls might as well have been made of clear glass to him.
Good for them, I guess, but nasty!
He'd been wandering for 3 days since his encounter with the elf woman, trying to find his way out of what he now realized was probably elven territory. The problem was, without true sight, he would have never known he was in elven territory at all. With it, he could see through the glamours and illusions that hid their settlements from human eyes. What looked like an ordinary hillside to most travelers was, to Rigg, a bustling elven trading post. What seemed like a stand of ordinary trees concealed elegant dwellings, wrapped around the trunks and branches. Everywhere he looked, the uninhabited wilderness teemed with hidden elven life. And, judging by the increasing frequency with which armed elf patrols were passing nearby, they were looking for something. Or someone.
Your fault,
he told the mushroom, which had taken to appearing whenever he was alone.
You and your fancy see everything magic.
My gift is wasted on you, the mushroom complained. You could be unraveling secrets of the universe, and instead you're trying to avoid looking at elf privies.
Trust me, some secrets are better kept secret.
Rigg ducked behind a boulder as another elf patrol flew past on what appeared to be giant dragonflies. At least, he thought they were dragonflies. With his new vision, it was hard to tell what was a real creature and what was simply magical energy shaped to look like one. They're getting closer, the mushroom noted. Soon they'll find you. Then they'll study you. Dissect you, probably. Elves are so scientific about their atrocities.
You're a cheery little fungus, aren't you?
Rigg peered around the boulder.
I just need to make it to human lands. They can't just murder me in the middle of a human town.
Can't they? Are you sure? Rigg wasn't, but he didn't want to admit it. He pressed on, moving as quietly as someone with the natural stealth of a landslide could manage. By sunset, he found himself on the outskirts of what appeared to be a proper elven settlement, not just a few dwellings or a trading post, but a small town nestled in a valley. To normal eyes, it would look like nothing but trees and meadows. To Rigg, it shimmered with magic and life. His stomach growled. He hadn't eaten since morning, and the town undoubtedly had food. But it also undoubtedly had elves, who would not appreciate a human blundering into their secret community. Go around, the mushroom advised.
That would add days to my journey,
Rigg protested.
I'm hungry now.
They'll kill you.
Only if they catch me.
They will catch you.
Maybe not.
Rigg grinned.
Let's find out.
The mushroom pulsed with alarm. This is madness. You're gonna get us both.
Hey, you're the one who decided to hitch a ride in my head,
Rigg pointed out.
I didn't ask for a divine backseat driver.
Before the mushroom could protest further, Rigg strode boldly down toward the hidden elven town. He figured he had 2 advantages. 1, most elves wouldn't be expecting a human to see through their illusions. And 2, he could see them coming before they saw him. What he failed to consider was that elven towns might have magical defenses beyond mere invisibility. He made it exactly 8 steps past the town's boundary before walking face first into an invisible barrier that felt like hitting a wall of lightning. It lifted him off his feet and threw him backward, his hair standing on end and his teeth vibrating like tuning forks.
Ouch!
He howled, rolling in the grass to extinguish the small flames now decorating his beard. I told you so, the mushroom said smugly.
Ah, shut up!
Rigg groaned, sitting up to assess the damage. His eyebrows were slightly singed and he could feel a tingle in his fingertips. But otherwise, he seemed intact.
What was that?
A warding barrier. Fairly standard elven protection. It's designed to repel unwanted visitors and alert the town to intruders.
You could have mentioned that before I walked into it.
You didn't ask. Besides, I told you to go around. Rigg was about to deliver what he considered a devastating retort when he noticed several figures approaching the barrier from the other side. Elves, armed with bows and slender swords, moving with the fluid grace of their kind.
Terrific,
he muttered. Now what? Run, you imbecile! For once, Rigg agreed with the mushroom. He scrambled to his feet and prepared to flee into the surrounding forest. But before he could take a single step, one of the elves on the other side of the barrier made a complex gesture in the air. The barrier rippled, and suddenly, nothing was holding Rigg back. They're lowering the barrier to come after you, the mushroom hissed. Run, now! But Rigg was busy staring at the gesture the elf had made. With his true sight, he could see the pattern of the magic that flowed from the elf's fingers, a complex sigil that hung in the air for a moment before dissolving into the barrier. Huh, he said, and without really thinking about it, he mimicked the gesture exactly. The barrier didn't just ripple this time. It collapsed entirely, the magic unraveling like a poorly knit sweater. The elves on the other side stumbled forward, clearly not expecting their town's ancient protection to fail so catastrophically. Oops, said Rigg. What did you do? The mushroom demanded, its glow pulsating with panic. I'm not entirely sure, Rigg admitted. I copied that elf's hand-wavy thing, but I think I may have done it backward, or inside out. It's hard to explain. The elves had recovered from their shock and were now advancing toward him, weapons drawn, faces masks of cold fury. You men, called the leader, a male elf with copper hair and armor that seemed to be made from living leaves. You are trespassing on sovereign elven territory. Surrender now, or... Don't mind me, Rigg interrupted cheerfully, backing away. Just passing through. Lovely invisible town you got here. Great job with the decoration. Very elfy. The leader's eyes widened. You can see everything, pretty much, yeah. It's a recent development. Blame the mushroom. Rigg continued backing away. Look, I don't want any trouble. I'm just trying to get back to human lands. If you can point me in the right direction, I'll be on my way and we can pretend this didn't happen. The elves exchanged glances. The leader's expression hardened. Take him, he ordered. Several things happened at once. The elves surged forward, moving with supernatural speed. Rigg, panicking, tried to copy another magical gesture he'd seen, this one from the barrier itself. The air between him and the elves suddenly compressed, then expanded with explosive force, sending the elven patrol flying backward like leaves in a windstorm. And a voice from the town cried out in terror. Assassin! Rigg blinked. I'm not... But then he followed the direction of the pointing elf villagers. They weren't looking at him. They were looking at a figure that had just appeared at the edge of the town square. A hooded being with hands that seemed to be made of living shadow, reaching for a young elf child. With his true sight, Rigg could see what the others couldn't. This wasn't an elf at all, but something twisted and wrong, wearing an elven appearance like an ill-fitting mask. Without thinking, he called out, That's not an elf! It's, I don't know what it is, but that's definitely not an elf! The hooded figure whirled toward him, and for a brief, terrifying moment, Rigg saw its true face beneath the magical disguise. A mass of writhing darkness, with too many eyes. Shit, said Rigg. Shaper, whispered the mushroom. An ancient enemy of the elves. A devourer of forms. The Shaper hissed, abandoned its target, and lunged toward Rigg with inhuman speed. The elven patrol was still recovering from being blown backward. They wouldn't reach him in time. Rigg did the only thing he could think of. He punched the creature square in its many-eyed face. His fist connected with a sound like canvas tearing. The Shaper shrieked. a noise that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, and recoiled. Black ichor spattered from where Rigg had struck it, burning small holes in the grass.
That's disgusting,
Rigg informed it, shaking his hand to dispel the pins and needles feeling spreading up his arm.
What kind of monster bleeds acid? That's just rude.
The shaper snarled and prepared to lunge again, but by now the elven patrol had recovered. Arrows whistled through the air, striking the creature with unerring accuracy. It screamed once more, twisting in on itself like paper burning from the center outward, and collapsed into a pile of oily ash. Rigg looked at the elven patrol. The elven patrol looked at Rigg.
So,
he said into the silence.
About those directions to human lands?
1 hour later, Rigg sat in what passed for an elven jail cell. A sphere of gently humming energy that contained him like a soap bubble, suspended a few feet above the ground in the town's central building. It was, he had to admit, much more comfortable than the human dungeons he'd occasionally found himself in. No rats, no damp straw, and the magic somehow provided a cushion of air to sit on.
Not bad,
he told the Gar who stood watch nearby.
Bit boring, though. I got any cards?
The guard, a young female elf with violet eyes and an expression of intense professional disinterest, did not respond.
I'm Rigg, by the way,
he continued.
Rigg Stormjar. Some people call me that idiot with the beard, but I prefer Rigg.
More silence.
You know,
Rigg said conversationally,
I can see through your bubble here, and through that wall, and pretty much everything else. Did you know there's an old elf 2 rooms over is picking his nose when he thinks nobody's looking? Like, really digging for treasure, elbow deep. It's impressive, actually.
The guard's eye twitched slightly, but she maintained her stoic demeanor.
Also,
Rigg went on,
there's a breach in your eastern defenses. Not a big one, but I can see some kinda, I don't know, magical thinning. Like the barrier stretched too thin there. Might want to get that checked out.
That got her attention. What are you talking about?
The magic wall around your town has got a weak spot on the east side. Probably from when I accidentally unraveled part of it earlier. Sorry about that, by the way. I didn't mean to break your invisible force field.
The guard stared at him for a long moment, then turned and whispered something to a small glowing orb hovering near her shoulder. The orb zipped away, presumably to relay the message.
See?
Rigg said brightly.
I'm helpful! A helpful prisoner who warned you about your defenses and saved a kid from a shapeshifter, shatter thing.
Shaper, the guard corrected automatically, then looked annoyed at having engaged with him.
Right, that's nasty-looking fellow. All eyes and bad attitude.
Before the guard could respond, or more likely, return to ignoring him, the door to the chamber opened, and in walked the copper-haired elf who had led the patrol.
Human,
he said without preamble.
I am Captain Taliv Dawnwhisper. You will answer my questions truthfully and completely, or you will face the consequences.
Rigg considered this.
What kind of consequences are we talking about? 'Cause if it's more time in this bubble, honestly, it's not that bad. Bit dull, but the view is spectacular. I can see a squirrel burying nuts 3 buildings over.
Dawnwhisper's elegant features tightened with irritation.
How can you see our town? How did you collapse our barrier? What is your purpose here? Who sent you?
In order. Mushroom magic? Accident. Trying to get home, and nobody sent me. I'm just a guy who ate the wrong breakfast.
Rigg paused.
Oh, and I saved your kid from that shadow eye monster thing. You're welcome, by the way.
The captain studied him with ancient, calculating eyes.
The Shaper would not have revealed itself if not for your interference. My patrol would have sensed it eventually.
Eventually might have been too late for the kid,
Rigg pointed out.
Just saying.
For a moment, something like uncertainty flickered across Dawnwhisper's face.
Then it was gone, replaced by cold resolve. Your claim about our eastern defenses has been verified. There is indeed a weakness in the barrier there. How did you know this?
Rigg tapped his temple. I can see it. I can see everything. Magic, illusions, barriers, lies. It's all clear as day to me now. That's why your invisible elf assassin didn't work on me the other day.
Assassin? What assassin?
Pretty lady. Very sneaky. Had a nice curvy dagger. She was all wrapped up in some invisible cloak thing, but I could see right through it. She didn't like that much.
Dawn Whisper's eyes narrowed. You encountered one of our scouts?
If encountered, you mean she tried to stab me and then screamed when I waved at her? Yeah.
The captain turned to the guard. Then for the elders. This human complicates things. Yes, indeed, the mushroom said inside Rigg's head, though only he could hear it. Things are about to get very complicated. 3 days later, Rigg stood at the edge of what the elves called the Howling Wastes, with Thalira Shadeleaf beside him. They made an unlikely pair. Her, all elven grace and silent fury. Him, a rumpled human disaster with a talking fungus in his head.
So, why you?
Rigg asked as they surveyed the barren landscape.
Last time we met, you tried to murder me.
Because, much to my eternal frustration, I am apparently descended from a line of warriors who once served your mushroom god, Thalira replied stiffly. The Shadeleaf bloodline has some genetic resistance to Vuleth's more transformative effects.
Translation, you're stuck with me, 'cause you won't go crazy from my magic mushroom vibes.
Crude, but accurate. Her violet eyes scanned the horizon. The Store Temple lies at the center of the wasteland. Once there, the elders believe we can either fully awaken Vuleth in a controlled way, or extract him fully without killing you.
That second option sounds nice, Rigg noted cheerfully. I've grown somewhat attached to being alive.
They lie, Vuleth whispered in his mind. The extraction would tear you apart. We are becoming too intertwined.
Fantastic,
Rigg muttered. Thalira gave him a sidelong glance. The mushroom speaks to you again?
Always very chatty for a fungal deity.
They set off across the wastes, an uneasy alliance forged by necessity. Thalira had explained that the creature Rigg had encountered, the Shaper, was merely a foot soldier in a coming war. The Nameless, an ancient enemy of both elves and Vuleth, was stirring again after centuries of dormancy. Shapers were its scouts, corrupted humans its foot soldiers, and worse things waited in the shadows. Only Vuleth's power of true sight could reveal the Nameless's agents before they struck, and only Rigg, for reasons no one fully understood, could channel that power without being consumed by it.
What I don't understand,
Rigg said, as they picked their way across the cracked landscape,
is why a mushroom god would care about helping elves. From what I gather, you're the ones who sealed them away to begin with.
A simplification, Vuleth sniffed, but not entirely incorrect. The elves feared the full revelation of truth, but they fear the Nameless more, and rightly so. Rigg shared this with Thalira, who nodded grimly. The Nameless would remake reality in his image, a place where nothing is as it seems, where shadows rule, and truth is the first casualty. Whatever my ancestors did to Vuleth, they did because they feared his power, not because he was evil.
So, we're basically choosing between brutal honesty and comfortable lies that will eat our souls.
Rigg scratched his beard.
Some choice.
By nightfall, they reached a series of stone formations that might have once been buildings. As they prepared camp,
Rigg's true sight detected movement in the shadows. Not normal wildlife, but forms that seemed to flicker in and out of existence.
"We're being watched," he told Thalira. "Not sure by what, but it doesn't feel friendly."
She readied her bow. "How many?"
"At least 5, maybe more. They're hard to count, like they're not fully there."
"Nameless scouts," Vulith warned. "Not as substantial as Shapers, but more dangerous in their way. They can invade dreams, plant doubts, turn allies against each other." Before Rigg could relay this, the air around their camp shimmered, and suddenly they were surrounded by tall, gaunt figures wrapped in tattered robes. Where their faces should have been, there were only vague suggestions of features, like half-remembered from a dream.
"Vessel of Vuleth,"
one hissed, its voice like wind through dead leaves.
"the Nameless extends an invitation. Join us freely, and we will spare the elf."
"Join you?"
Rigg's hand went straight to his sword.
"Why would I do that?"
"Because Vuleth lies,"
The figure replied.
"The god does not seek to enlighten, it seeks to control. To remake the world in its image, where every secret is laid bare, where privacy impossible, where the comfort of merciful deception is stripped away."
Thalira loosed an arrow toward the creature's chest. It passed through without effect.
"Don't listen to them,"
she warned Rigg.
"They're trying to turn you against Vuleth." "Really? Couldn't tell,"
Rigg replied dryly. To the shadowy figures, he said,
"Thanks, but no thanks. I'll stick to the mushroom I know. Over the creepy shadow faces I don't."
The lead figure sighed, a sound like the last breath leaving a dying body.
"Then we take you by force."
The shadows surged forward. Thalira's arrows proved useless, passing through them like they were made of smoke. Rigg's sword was equally ineffective. One of the creatures reached for him, its fingers elongating into wispy tendrils that sought his eyes, his ears, any entrance to his mind. "Let me help you!" Vulith urged. "Let me channel my power through you!"
"Last time you suggested that, you tried to take over,"
Rigg reminded the mushroom, dodging another grasping tendril. "Not take over! Merge! Work together! These creatures cannot be fought physically! They must be fought with truth!"
"Fine,"
Rigg grunted, rolling away from another shadow creature.
"But try any funny business, and I swear I'll find a way to give you mushroom indigestion."
He felt Vulith's presence swell within him, not overwhelming his consciousness, but merging with it. Power flowed through him, making his skin glow with a blue-green light. When he looked at his hands, they were lined with the same luminescence, and tiny mushrooms had begun sprouting from his fingertips.
"It's disgusting,"
he informed Vulith. "It's magnificent," the mushroom corrected. "Now, show them the light of truth!" Acting on instinct, Rigg thrust his hand toward the nearest shadow creature. A beam of intense light shot from his palms, striking the creature squarely. It screamed, a sound like reality tearing, and disintegrated into wisps of darkness.
"Whoa,"
Rigg breathed.
That's actually pretty cool."
Thalira stared at him in shock.
"Your beard is growing mushrooms." "What?"
Rigg's hand flew to his face, where indeed, tiny luminous fungi were sprouting from his beard.
"Oh, come on!"
"A small price to pay for power," Vulith said smugly. The remaining shadow creatures hesitated, then attacked with renewed desperation. Rigg and Thalira fought back to back, her bow now wreathed in the same light that emanated from Rigg, her arrow suddenly effective against the shadows. Every time a creature came close, Rigg blasted it with what he was mentally calling his truth beams, causing it to dissolve into nothingness. When it was over, Rigg collapsed to his knees, exhausted. The mushrooms in his beard fell away, dissolving into motes of light. The glow faded from his skin, though a faint luminescence lingered in his veins.
That, he panted, was intense.
Thalira knelt beside him, studying his face with unexpected concern.
You resisted. What?
The merge with Vuleth. You controlled it, directed it. The elders said it was impossible, that any vessel who channeled Vuleth's full power would be consumed by it.
Rigg grinned weakly.
Maybe the mushroom god underestimated how stubborn humans can be.
Or perhaps, Vuleth suggested, sounding surprisingly thoughtful, I underestimated the value of working with a vessel rather than simply claiming one.
Did you hear that?
Rigg asked Thalira.
I think I'm growing on him. Like a fungus, I guess.
Despite everything, a corner of Thalira's mouth twitched upward.
We should rest. The temple is still a day's journey away, and after that display, more servants of the Nameless will come.
Fantastic,
Rigg sighed.
More shadow monsters trying to kill us. At this point, I'm starting to think the dwarves who dared me to eat that mushroom knew exactly what they were doing.
That night, as Thalira kept watch, Rigg found himself in a dream conversation with Vuleth. The mushroom appeared not as its usual small, glowing form, but as a tall, otherworldly being composed of light and strange geometries that hurt to look at directly. We must discuss what awaits us at the temple, Vuleth said. The elders did not tell you everything.
Shocking,
Rigg replied sarcastically. The ritual they propose has two possible outcomes. Either I fully awaken, consuming you in the process.
Let's mark that one Plan Z, shall we?
Or I am extracted, killing you in the process.
Also not a fan of that one.
There is a third way, Vuleth continued. One the elves do not know or would not approve of. We can continue as we are, a partnership. I gain a physical form through which to experience the world. You gain the power and true sight.
And the mushroom beard. Don't forget the mushroom beard.
A minor cosmetic concern.
Says the mushroom,
Rigg sighed.
But I get your point. So, what's the catch with option 3?
The elves will not help us fight the Nameless. They fear a power they cannot control, and the Nameless will never stop hunting us.
So, either I die, or I become a god-mushroom hybrid on the run from shadow monsters for the rest of my life.
Rigg considered this.
Not great options.
There is always choice, human. That is the one truth even I cannot change. When Rigg awoke, he found Thalira watching him curiously.
You were talking in your sleep, she said. Something about mushroom beards and running away?
Just having a chat with my fungal roommate,
Rigg replied, stretching.
Turns out your elders aren't being entirely forthcoming about this whole temple ritual thing.
Explain,
she demanded. So he did, laying out the 3 options as Vuleth had presented them. To his surprise, Thalira didn't seem shocked by the revelation.
I suspected as much, she admitted. My family's records, what few remain, hint that the relationship between Vuleth and the elves was always complicated.
Complicated how?
Vuleth showed us truths we were not ready to face. About ourselves, about our history. Some embraced this clarity, others feared it would tear our society apart.
She rose, gathering her equipment.
My ancestors were among those who embraced it. The Jade Leaf line has always valued truth, even when it hurts.
So, what are you saying?
Rigg asked, following suit. She met his eyes directly.
I'm saying that when we reach this temple, I will support whatever choice you make, even if it goes against my orders.
Rigg blinked in surprise.
That's unexpected. I thought you hated me.
I did, she agreed readily. But I've seen how you use your power. You saved that child from the Japer. You fought the Nameless servants to protect me. You're reckless and irritating, but not evil.
High praise indeed.
Don't push your luck, human.
The Spore Temple rose from the barren landscape like a half-remembered dream. All impossible angles and surfaces that seemed to shift when you weren't looking directly at them. To Rigg's true sight, it glowed with ancient power. Layers upon layers of magic so dense they formed a solid wall of light. At its heart lay a vast circular chamber, dominated by a single pedestal. Atop the pedestal sat a small depression, a perfect fit for the spectral mushroom that now resided in Rigg's head.
This is where it all began, Thalira said softly, where Vuleth was first bound to physical form, and where he was later sealed away.
Now we just need to decide whether to set him free, let him eat me, or tell the elves we're running away together,
Rigg quipped, though his usual humor felt forced, even to himself.
Vassal of Vuleth!
The voice thundered through the chamber, making the very stones vibrate. A figure coalesced from the shadows at the far end of the room, taller than any natural being, wrapped in robes of pure darkness. Where its face should have been, there was only a writhing void.
Let me guess,
Rigg said.
The Nameless itself. Come to make a better offer than the Shadowscates?
I offer nothing but your inevitable end. Vuleth must not awaken. The age of truth is over. The age of shadow begins.
Dramatic,
Rigg commented to Thalira, who had already knocked an arrow to her bow.
Very theatrical. I give it a 8 out of 10 for presentation, but points off for predictability.
The Nameless surged forward with impossible speed. Thalira fired arrow after arrow, each burning with blue-green light, but they slowed the creature only momentarily. Rigg drew his sword, knowing it would be useless, but unwilling to go down without a fight. "Let me help you," Vuleth urged. "One last time. Let us join together. Show this creature what we can do against lies."
And then what?
Rigg demanded, even as he dodged a tendril of darkness.
You take over? I die?
Then we choose. Together. But we must first survive to make that choice. Rigg glanced at Thalira, who was now fighting hand-to-hand with tendrils of living shadow. She was losing.
Fine,
he gritted out.
But I lead this dance, mushroom. Got it?
Agreed. Once again, Rigg felt Vuleth's power flow through him, but this time it was different. Instead of Vuleth trying to drive, they moved in tandem, the god's knowledge guided by Rigg's instincts. Light erupted from his skin, burning away the shadows that reached for him. His vision expanded beyond even what true sight had shown him before, revealing the Nameless for what it truly was. Not a god, or a demon, but a parasite. A thing that fed on fear and doubt and hidden truths.
You're not the Nameless,
Rigg realized aloud.
You're the liar. The one who whispers that truth is too painful to bear, that we're better off not knowing, that ignorance is bliss.
Silence!
The creature roared, but there was fear in its voice now.
No, I don't think I will be silent,
Rigg replied, advancing.
See, that's the thing about truth. Once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. And I've seen you, liar. I've seen what you really are.
He thrust his hands forward, channeling a beam of pure truth light at the creature's core. It screamed, a sound like every lie ever told breaking at once, and recoiled.
Thalira!
Rigg called.
Aim for the center! That's where its real form is hiding!
She recovered her bow and fired directly into the heart of the darkness. Her arrow, guided by Rigg's true sight, struck home. The creature convulsed, darkness streaming from it like blood.
This is not the end!
It hissed as it collapsed in on itself.
Truth always yields to comfortable lies in the end. I will return when you are dust! Maybe, Rigg acknowledged, but not today.
With a final shriek, the Nameless, the liar, dissolved into nothingness, leaving only a faint smear of shadow on the temple floor. In the silence that followed, Rigg became aware of two things. First, he had mushrooms growing not just in his beard, but all over his body, like a bizarre fungal armor. And second, that Thalira was staring at him with an expression he couldn't quite interpret.
Well,
He said finally.
it was dramatic.
You're glowing, she pointed out.
Yeah, side effect of channeling a mushroom god. It should wear off soon.
He looked down at himself and grimaced.
I hope the mushrooms go away too. This is just embarrassing.
They will fade, Vuleth assured him. Until next time.
Next time?
Rigg asked aloud. If you wish it. We have a choice to make. You and I. Rigg looked at the pedestal, then at Thalira.
The elders are expecting us to either free Vuleth or bind him more tightly. They're not expecting us to walk out of here with him still in my head, working together.
No, she agreed. They're not.
What do you think I should do?
She considered this, her violet eyes thoughtful. I think the world needs to know truth now more than ever. Even if it's uncomfortable. Even if it changes things.
Even if it sprouts mushrooms in inconvenient places?
A hint of a smile touched her lips. Even then. Rigg turned and walked to the pedestal, running his fingers over the depression where Vuleth had once rested.
You know, Mushroom, when those dwarves dared me to eat you, I just wanted 50 gold for new boots. Instead, I got true sight, magical powers, shadow monsters trying to kill me, a very confusing relationship with an elven scout who can't decide whether to stab me or save me.
Life rarely gives us what we expect, Vuleth observed. Only what we need.
Deep thoughts from a fungus.
Rigg chuckled. He turned back to Thalira.
So, what now? I go back to wandering around, accidentally exposing hidden truths and making enemies? You go back to your elven masters and make excuses for why the ritual didn't happen?
She straightened, decision written in every other line of her body. No. I go with you.
What?
Someone needs to keep you from getting yourself killed. She lowered her bow. Besides, my family has served Vuleth for generations, apparently. Might as well continue the tradition.
You're serious?
Really, more so. She stepped closer. The world is changing, Rigg Stormjaw. The shadows are growing. People like us. People who can see the truth and aren't afraid to act on it. We are needed. Rigg felt something warm spread through his chest that had nothing to do with divine mushroom power.
People like us,
he repeated.
I like the sound of that.
As do I, agreed Vuleth. A shade leaf and a stormjaw, working together once more. History repeats itself in interesting ways. They left the temple together, stepping out into the harsh light of day. The mushrooms had begun to fade from Rigg's skin, though the faint glow remained in his veins, visible only if you knew what to look for. Ahead lay uncertainty, danger, and probably a lot more shadow monsters trying to kill them. But also truth. And maybe, just maybe,
Something more between a human barbarian and an elven scout than either of them had expected.
You know,
Rigg said, as they began their journey back across the wastes.
next time I'm definitely skipping lunch.
Next time, Thalira replied with the ghost of a smile. Do your food more carefully.
There won't be a next time, Vuleth assured them both. I was the last of my kind.
Thank God for the small mercies,
Rigg muttered, and together they walked into whatever future awaited them. A future that, thanks to true sight, would at least be honest, if not always comfortable. And sometimes, that's all anyone can ask for.